This is speaking only of self itself, not self and what appears as the human scene, but just what is true of self itself. And right away, the thought may come, well, you're a human body. You're talking. You're using words. This is taking time to express. And I can't argue with that. We were talking about that awareness with the capital A, or consciousness with the capital C, or self, or nowness, and so on, is not really aware of what appears as an arising world, a phenomenal world, a world of time and human events and human experiences and sensations and thinking and emotions and so on. I think a lot of the maybe confusion or questions come up from because when we use a word like awareness or consciousness, right away there's a tendency to go to what we seem to be aware of, or there's a tendency to include the contents. And a lot of times you'll hear that there's awareness, and maybe this arising or appearing world, really it's an illusion, but there's no separation. Awareness does not see or make a distinction between form and formlessness. I think it's one thing to assume that awareness is sort of coexistent with this other state, even though you're saying it's an illusion, and even though you're saying it's not being seen as separate, and quite another to have the clarity that there's only awareness and nothing else ever happens. Only awareness. You'll notice that awareness is whether there are any words said or not. It's present independent of all that. And I realize, for many, this is nothing new. This is going over old ground. But I think it's important to, what I'm trying to establish is that awareness and is are really synonyms. And now let's talk a little bit more about is. And what really is. What does that mean? And this might sound like we're getting a little intellectual because we're paying so much attention to words, but actually the more clarity there is as to what is, the farther away from words you are, because is present tense. It's being, it's nowness. In the word is or being or present, there is no provision for any passage of time. If you have even a microsecond of time, you're talking about something that is not. It is not anymore. The past is, even if it's a microsecond, the past is not present anymore. That's why it's called the past. The future is not present yet. Is that which is utterly without time. It's not between time, not between past and future. It is the absence of time. And only, this is going to sound like, again, like we were saying last week, this is almost, it's so profoundly simple that it sounds like there's a catch or that there's something trickier to it. But only what is can be. And you can't think that, because if you're thinking is a process that takes time. And already you're in time and you're off to try and think that. And it is awareness itself, pre anything you seem to be aware of, pre any mental activity, any thoughts about awareness, any feeling of, I got it now, or any kind of a sensation or any kind of other form. There is only is, and it's timeless. What is timeless, and only what is can be. Only the timeless can be. What we don't do, when I say we, that's really a misnomer, but what we don't do is we don't start here as this is. I have to say, notice, for want of a better way of saying it, how simple it is for awareness to be aware right now, without any thought, without any feeling. How effortless is it for the present to be present? Is there any struggle? Is there any work has to be done? Does there have to be any thought clarified before the present will be what the present is? And I can't even say just kind of feel that, taste that. Those are all wrong too. But this is what is being without any saying required. Peter Dziuban saying words about it doesn't affect it in one way or the other. But this is what is. And from here, or as this, to say then that this is the one, let me back up. This is the one that's being conscious. This is the one that's existing, this isness, this ever-presentness. And even ever is not good because that implies a kind of a continuity in time. But this isness is the one that is existing. And the moment there's an attempt to watch for yourself, the moment there's an attempt to account for something else, there has to be a departure of a mental wandering, if you will, from resting in or abiding as or just letting this isness be, and thought has gone off to whether you call it a physical object or even a mental object in thought. It doesn't make any difference. It's the same separation. And if there's any kind of a form, any kind of a thought form, forget about a physical objective form, even a thought form, it takes time to have that thought. It takes time for a form to be formed. And right away, again, it seems there has been a departure from is. And that's why, and yet, then you got to come back and say, but wait, is all that is. And what isn't can't begin anywhere or ever because it isn't. It doesn't exist. It's not a state. It's not a contrary or opposite state. That's why Nisargadatta used to say, we've got to get beyond being and non-being, as if non-being or non-existence was this other possibility. It really isn't. It doesn't exist, not even as non-existent. Not even as non-existence, only is can be. It might seem, when we wander from our own isness mentally, that there can be an imaginary state of isness. Yeah, it might seem that way, but not to being itself or pure is itself. And so it's on that basis that we're saying that only is can be, and you cannot be consistent with that and say that it also exists with an arising, because instantly any kind of arising takes time. It takes time for an appearance to appear, even if it's a thought appearance in a flash of a second or less than a second. All of those take time, and those time does not occur in what is.
Whether it takes time or it just creates time. I mean, just the thought creates time,
better
right?
Said.
And
better
then,
said.
And
that
then
is
you're
time.
saying it so clear because the isness just seems like it's so there, and you realize there's no risk of losing isness,
Yeah.
and then you just say, well, the thought is a mechanism that creates time just by, the very moment you have any kind of consideration.
Yes.